I thought this was a DFM video, so why are we watching Crazy Raccoon? Oh, well, because 4 of the players are now, in fact, on DFM. So, will this core look better than last year's DFM? And most importantly, will they finally get a win in VCT Pacific? I started out this video thinking absolutely yes, they should. But then I saw some things that are starting to give me some doubts. So, let's take a look at some examples. To get a better look at how this team plays, or should play, we're going to look at the last 2 games of Crazy Raccoon in Challengers Japan 2023. Now again, reminder, 4 of these players are now on DFM with the same coaching staff as well. So all things considered, the philosophy and the idea should be fairly consistent. Let's take a look. First up, it's going to be their match against Fennel, and we are taking a look at Pearl. It has been a while since we've looked at Pearl, but let's just see how things play out. My biggest focus as I was going through these VODs was, how does the teamwork look? Are they communicating? Are they working together? You know, are there some really good set plays? Are there good ideas and decision making? And honestly, we started with a couple good rounds. So what we see here is they already got contact in Art, all right? They already had a brief contact with Jet, CLZ on Fennel. And then they're saying, okay, we want to rotate over to B Halls and towards mid and put some pressure in. They're going to lead with the Trailblazer from Sky, and they're going to plant May deep in. Now, what happens first is Medusa actually peaks, in my opinion, a little early here. There wasn't really a reason for him to try to force contact until May was planted here, because if there's someone watching from, you know, sewers or just somewhere in mid anyway, I think May's kind of stranded. You can only really support with abilities. So Medusa a little early, and he does get picked off, but the decision making from Crazy Raccoon actually quite quick, and everyone seems to be on board. So as we see it play out, May is going to go, break the alarm bot, plants deep into mid, doesn't see anyone through the abilities. Medusa gets picked off, and immediately as Medusa gets picked off, Crazy Raccoon is not dawdling, trying to get control of Art again. They're not trying to consider, what do we do? May's like stranded in mid, what's the plan here? No, they just say, okay, Sky, go into Halls to support before the high tide comes down so that May feels safe in mid. May's just continuing to watch Art, and then already the Harbor Viper is now prepared for a site entry into B. Cascade comes out, you have the Harbor. All things considered, it should be pretty straightforward. Now, what this is going to allow them to do is Neth on the Harbor gets Reckoning as well on the Spike plant. So everything is going very well for the team. Overall, the duels, you know, perhaps not as great as you would want them to be, as Ciuta comes in and kind of wreaks havoc on the site. He's going to pick off, I believe, 2 kills here. But at the end of the day, I mean, they got the plant down, they took out a couple weapons. Even if they lost a round, overall, the quick decision making to go into B and plant May so that they can't rotate too quickly on Fennel's side was a very good decision. Pretty promising. Now, this next clip, as you can tell, it's already a 3v5. So Crazy Raccoon, they got picked off both on B long and then, of course, in mid near B Halls as well. So they're already down and they don't have any control of B main. You know, they don't really have any strong control of A main either. All they know is that, okay, there isn't someone just digging way deep into the flank anyway. So all they really have is mid, which does indicate that they're kind of trapped here. The thing I want to focus on is we'll play this and we'll stop it right as they're about to enter into the site. We'll skip forward. You know, they're just going through at this point. They're just kind of hoping that they don't get picked off. All right, Medusa gets contact on the turret. He's going to break it early on. And now you're down to 20 seconds. At this point, Crazy Raccoon just has to make a call, right? You're either committing or saving. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't think you could really blame them too hard if they went for a save. But Crazy Raccoon is trying to play for a win here in this round. And what's going to happen is they're going to go in. Nanoswarm goes off. Can't go in any further. Don't have someone like a Jet who can jump above. They don't have too much to work with. The Cove comes out. It's going to get broken. And this is the moment where it's like, okay, these guys, they're on comms, they're communicating, and they're in tune with each other. Because at the 10-second mark, the Cove gets broken. So you can't stick it, you know, just hoping that you don't get spammed out. So then the decision is either we go out and we try to save an Art, right? Try to run away for 10 seconds, or you commit into the site. It's one or the other, right? You can't, what we'll often see with teams that don't have as much good teamwork, or a lot of the amateur teams, is something like, okay, the Harbor was trying to plant and they're like, oh, I can't plant anymore, but we got to try to go for the win. So they go into the site while the other two are like, no, we got to save. At that point, the Harbor's dead for sure. and then you're probably not getting the plant, and you're only saving 2 weapons, right? So then you're not really gaining any advantages. But the good news here is they say, okay, well, we already decided to commit to play for the win. At the 20-second mark, we decided we're going to go for this. Even though the Nanoswarm was popped, we decided to throw the Cove and go in with the possibility that someone's here, obviously, because they've been stuck in mid and they have no information. And on top of that, they don't really have any more. I mean, sure, they checked earlier. The Sky checked into sewers, but they don't really have any information if someone's lurked all the way around, or if someone's been chasing them all the way around here, if someone's here or not. So they don't feel that safe going into art anyway and surviving for 10 seconds. So all 3 members very well aware this is the plan. So what happens is they follow, right? Popogachi and Neth follow Neth. And what ensues is that they're in position for some good trades. And they suddenly turn it on its head, 3v1. They should not have won this round when we really think about everything. But the fact that they decided to commit to it, sure, the fights might not have gone their way, but I would say at the very least, they were all on the same page. And there wasn't, like, you're not wasting precious seconds trying to communicate, okay, do we go in or not? Like, this is already all laid out. You've already committed to it. You just stick to the plan, and then it works out. Now, the next couple rounds, we're going to take a specific look at Medusa here, because Medusa oftentimes has some good carry potential, and, you know, playing the Sentinel, he's oftentimes seen lurking around the map. Now, good lurkers, there's a fine line between being a great lurker and a genius, and then looking like you're always just letting your team play a 4v5. And I think Medusa really rides this fine line now and then. But we'll take a couple look at the good examples first. So we're taking a look at round 14, second half against Northception on Ascent. Obviously, they lost the pistol. They actually got the spike plant, but they decided not to force buy up into outside of pistols. And Medusa starts to just dig deep, all right? Within the first, like, 20 seconds, he is going deep into mid, breaks the alarm bot. First of all, already putting on this pressure when it's a round that you're not expecting to win anyway, I would say pretty good. On Ascent, whatever you can do to force them to focus more on mid, good. Makes the site weaker. So he goes in, sees no opposition, and he decides to just dig deeper. Considering this is an eco round for them, all things considered, just 2 sheriffs, I think this is the best decision they could have made, right? I mean, Medusa just like hanging out in pizza, not going to do anything with a classic. So you dig deep and you force them to have to at least pay attention to mid. At least one person now has to watch mid. You just saw the recon bolt come out onto B main as well. So you're like, okay, minimum 2 people. So only 3 people on A. Then they're going to continue on. Actually, a really good shot here from Popogachi as well. I mean, this is just really good. Double peeking here from them. They're set up for it. Popogachi gets a clean headshot, and that obviously helps. But at the end of the day, Medusa still very patient, and he is just hanging out, and he makes the call for everyone to start to group up towards him. They even see the push out from A main, so they're like, okay, that's not where we want to go. And they're putting some pressure down into tree. And the idea here is the call is made where we kind of have to group up, but instead of giving up all this control again and all this control again, assuming someone's still watching this and someone's still watching this, they say, what is the most optimal way to win this? Well, let's try to pinch on to the defender spawn. So we see Popogachi, who's going to dig deep. Now that they've already cleared out one and they don't see any more, they already saw the double peek coming out from A main anyway. So good deductions, and then the spike and the remaining forces are grouping in mid. In theory, this round still should have ended in a one-sided loss for Crazy Raccoon, right? Because Northception is obviously very well aware that Medusa was on the lurk here in mid. They should be picking him off. And at the end of the day, Crazy Raccoon should not have been able to take more control of the map. But, you know, what ensues afterwards is a bit of a miss here from Dariali, just kind of having to do a double take. That already ruins things a bit, and now Northception is stuck here, but Popogachi's already in the flank, which was not expected. And 10-10, yeah. Next, we actually rewind the same map, Ascent against Northception, and it's round 3, the bonus for Crazy Raccoon, and Medusa is currently holding on to a Vandal. Now, everyone else mostly carrying over the weapons that they had, so it's the Judge, the Spectre, a Sheriff, and a Guardian. So, you know, in a sense, it's a bit of a hero Vandal here, but it's their bonus. Now, if you look at the setup, typical Omen KO setup to take control of A main. You've got the one-way, and then eventually they'll plant the Judge up close. And then you have, of course, the Spectre and the Guardian. The Guardian potential to spam through, and that allows the Spectre to be planted into the Cubby and B main. And this actually leaves Killjoy all alone in mid with just a little bit of support on the turret. Hasn't put down any utility, and so he's just looking to kind of take some duels. Now, it's a bonus. I'm okay with this. On the bonus round, I'm okay with this. And in fact, Medusa does have some crispy shots when he's on point, and there's a little bit of luck involved in this round as well. Because what's going to happen is he gets pinged, and he's like, all right, I'm just going to stick around on it. He saw the cloudburst. He assumes they pushed up. They actually line up for it. Now, afterwards, he's pretty much stuck. And there's a couple options that you could have had. You could have tried to just survive as long here and then wait for teammates to push up. But the problem is you've got a Judge who's not going to push up too aggressively in A main. Then you've got a Spectre who's also probably not going to push up too aggressively without support in B main either. So Medusa understands, we've already committed to this. I have to do something. I am getting spammed. So he decides to just swing out and try to take another duel. Now, generally, his shots are pretty good. So, I mean, this could have turned into one where he's like on for the ace. The problem is, while they will win this round, the problem becomes that Medusa seems to really trust in his aim maybe a bit too much. And a lot of rounds I've noticed, Crazy Raccoon kind of relies on Medusa really winning out on his lurks or something like this, some of the hero plays, or May having to win out all the duels. And if you're relying on that, you better have like the best aimers in the world if you want to get far in the VCT. And what we're going to see moving on, that's not always the case. But since we're on a good streak of good moves and good moments from Crazy Raccoon, let's take a look at another map against Northeption. This is round 3 on Haven. They won the first 2 rounds. This is now their bonus, and if you take a look on the left-hand side, you will see that May has a Marshal, and then you've got a Vandal on Neth as well. Vandal on Medusa and Guardian on Pobagachi. So the weaponry, pretty good. I like the setup that they already have. The biggest thing about this round is the setup, okay? So they have a trap play set up in A main. You've got the turret to get contact first, and you've got someone holding close to really catch someone by surprise. And then this Nano Swarm gets a little interesting, but we'll take a look at it in a second. Meanwhile, you've got the Spectre holding close in Garage, and you have the Marshal watching long. You're just, at that point, you're hoping that you get the first pick. You've emptied B site. Right? I mean, you don't have the best weaponry. You don't have all the util that you would want. You don't want to waste things on a round that you might not win. So I like this. The commitment to just saying, this is our plan. If we get advantages, great. If not, we move as 5. So Northeption, they've already used a couple abilities here and there. They used the Recon earlier. Note that Crazy Raccoon is holding on to all their abilities other than just one smoke from Makiba that he's putting on Cycle. Makiba actually escapes right off of that. Good reaction. Uses the Paranoia to push them out as well. A lot of times I would actually say like, ooh, Paranoia too early. But here, the idea is you want to push them into A, right? Or at least C long. And so I don't mind it too much. I mean, it's kind of a Hail Mary play anyway at that point. But then they commit. They say, okay, I already pushed them out. I took Garage Control back. They haven't come in here. We didn't get early contact on C long. So we're going to start rotating over. Already good comms. And then the trap play's ready. Note, no utility was used in A. Right? So Northeption just has zero idea. No one was pinged on the recon. They just have no idea. But then they're probably thinking like, oh, this must be some weird stack going on because nothing was used. Or maybe it's like just the Killjoy with Killjoy utility. They're already also down on time. It does not help that Dariali loses that duel. That actually holds them back just a bit. But the biggest thing here is the setup with the Nano Swarm. The fault line comes through. And what the Nano Swarm does is anyone who is pushing up to fight against Medusa, you're either getting fault lined and dying, or you're walking into the Nano Swarm and like sitting in it for more than you would want. Really good trap setup. Not one you can use like all the time. Obviously, it helps that Medusa wins the first 2 kills. But at the end of the day, a very good setup already dwindles it down to a 4v2. And then they should be moving on, I believe. Although Moody does his best to close things out. Crazy Raccoon will win this, right? You're pressed for time. May already did some damage. He's just trying to buy time. Baits that out. Does not realize he's getting shot, but Moody now has just no idea where Makiba is coming from. It should be noted, Makiba, not part of the core that moved on to DFM, but overall the comms, the idea, the setup, good. Okay, so they know how to do trap plays. They know good timings to use it on the bonus. They know how to force it into that. They're understanding basic philosophy. So we took a look at some rounds that gave me hope that the comms are good. They're moving as a team. They're all on the same page, on the same wavelength. You know, they have some members who have some good shots. This is good. Everything points to them definitely getting their first win in VCT Pacific, even though every team has been upgraded. It was looking great until we saw a couple rounds like this. So this is round 6 of Haven versus Fennel. Different opponent, but they just used their timeout. Obviously, you can see why. I know the scoreline's not looking great. You know, maybe it's a little early, but I don't mind it, right? They have their rifles bought up, and Jojo on the opponent team has his Rolling Thunder ready to go. So very good idea for a timeout, right? Slow things down, make sure that they have to, you know, Fennel has to kind of think about, do we want to use the Rolling Thunder right away or not? Things like that. You're relying on C just buying enough time and delaying, maybe even getting some good damage in with the Alarm Bot turret and Nano Swarm on C. Put some heavy presence onto Garage and B, right? You don't want to get caught off guard. Your plan is to empty the A site, mind you, because of the Rolling Thunder. It's very clear that that was the intention. The recon bolt was used earlier, but Pobagachi's just kind of hanging out until he gets an inkling that they might be coming to A. And usually when teams do this, what happens is you empty it, right? You're emptying the site, or you like push up. It's one or the other, because otherwise you're going to get hit by the Rolling Thunder and you can't do much. Now, you have to imagine with the setup they have, this is exactly what was considered. May gets a nice pick onto Huron in Garage, and that starts to make them second guess themselves a bit, right? They're like, okay, we see Astra smokes coming up in A, things like that. We only saw the Killjoy. Let's go ahead and, okay, you're checking over in C long. I don't mind that. You put the smoke up in A main. I don't mind that. Net this here by a link, not in the site, to provide support if something goes wrong. Okay, Neth's position is good here, right? He's not going to get hit by the Rolling Thunder. He can still throw out a flash or a fault line to hold them off, to make sure that there's an escape or they don't come in too easily. It all seems dandy. But look at Pobagachi's positioning. The only thing I can think of here, is either you think the Rolling Thunder is going to be used like right in front of you in the smoke. Not completely out of question, since you put the smoke up. You're like, well, maybe they took control of it earlier. Or you think it's, somehow only going to clear this side, right? And it's just not going to clear the right side, which again could happen because of the way that sometimes it gets angled. But at the end of the day, even if you do get a pick, unless you're getting more than 2 kills or 2 or more kills minimum, no one's there to support you, right? There's, in very rare cases, would you get an ace here somehow as the opponent using the Rolling Thunder to get in, and they have a Jet who's probably dashing by you anyway. So the only thing I can imagine is you're like, oh, well, maybe I can get a double kill. And yeah, I guess, if you get the double kill and they use the Rolling Thunder, technically on paper, yes, you come out on top, but it's like you could also just not do that because you already got a pick early against Huron. You have a 5v4, and I don't know, you could have sat back here and used the drone right from behind the boxes, and then have Neth make sure to slow them down if the Rolling Thunder comes out. Something to bait out the Rolling Thunder. I think the idea here from Pobagachi, now that I'm talking about it, is also, what if they don't use the Rolling Thunder, right? So if I can get a pick, that'll force them to use more abilities, things like that. Because, if Fennel got wiser and they didn't use their ult, then they could actually keep it in the 4v5 against the retake. But there are other ways to bait that out, right? Whether it's, you could even use one flashpoint, you could use the Aftershock just to buy time, so they have to use it to come in afterwards, and then you could take control mid. There are just so many other things you could do to keep the numbers advantage. And then Pobagachi decides to stay up here. Once again, Neth is only watching short. He is not in the site. He is just here to, I guess, make sure Pobagachi doesn't get pinched, caught off guard. So now look at what happens. They actually do creep up. So Pobagachi wasn't entirely wrong in his decision making, right? Because they're not using the Rolling Thunder. CLZ actually misses the dash entirely into the smoke, gets spotted, and Pobagachi gets the kill. But because of this position switch from Pobagachi, this has now drawn Neth in. Okay? I mean, it's good that they're communicating, because especially with the smoke coming up here, the star coming up here, because otherwise Neth would be just saying like, you're on your own, buddy, you're going to die, whatever, you're not part of the team anymore. So, I mean, I guess it's good that they're communicating, but you now have 2v4 against a potential Rolling Thunder, right? The fault line comes out as well to try to hold them off, but Neth not able to peek out of it because of the flash that comes out, and that now draws out the Rolling Thunder, and Neth is now stuck. A decent paranoia to try to hold them off, but again, you're stuck there. Your teammates can't come in. Counter fault line also holds off the backup, and now the spike gets planted. It's just one of those things where we saw so many of these other rounds where they had good showings of we're all on the same page, and then this was one where it's like you committed to the setup early on. You got the first pick. I mean, even if they keep the Rolling Thunder for the retake, like the Killjoy's dead, so you could have an early flank. I just think this is one of those things where it's like you thought you were being clever, but this is a pro game, and you weren't. Now, we start to see a couple rounds on Ascent against Fennel. They got absolutely one-side stomped. I believe this was a 13-1. So that probably contributes to what we're about to see here. But as they get pushed to their limits, we start to see Crazy Raccoon break apart a little bit. Now, I do believe they were playing consecutive days. So, yeah, maybe there's some fatigue, etc. But what we're going to see here is a decent idea, but some just a little bit of late communication, and they're not on the same pace, right? So again, they're not playing individually, but it's not clean. Let's actually pause it real quick and take a look at what we're dealing with here. So this is round 6 against Ascent against Fennel. They have weaponry, they've got ultimates, and you can already tell, okay, they are focusing on taking control of mid. They've 0 point in this, they smoked off A short as well, and they are going to try to take control of mid. You have Medusa watching for a push out from B main. You've got a pinch ready onto B, right? And then you've got the Lurk as well. And you have Makiba with the From the Shadows, the ultimate, to go into Boathouse if needed, right? Into backside. So, pretty good idea. The only problem is you already used one smoke to cover off tree, and then you use the drone early to take control. You even spot the op, right? And Medusa doesn't get picked off. He's actually going to try to challenge. Doesn't get the kill instantly. Spots, I believe, Neth while he's at it. So, not Neth, that's his teammate. Spots Jojo while he's at it. So he backs off. Really good. He's not greeting here. He's not saying I can take on both of them. He just says, my team is already in mid. They're already all the way up to pizza. The drone helped push them in. The Silva is now coming for backup. Everything is dandy. Everything's looking great. The problem is they heard the op. So I can only imagine from what we're about to watch, the call comes out to say, op is stuck here. There's one more person. Let's get a pinch going. Let's take out B main. That is fine in theory, but there's so many things that need to go right. First of all, you only have one more smoke left, right? Your smoke was already used up here. Now, you just activated the null command, so no more abilities are coming out. So the best thing you can have is either a cloud burst here or an omen smoke here to try to get through. That means this will remain open, this will remain open. You still have to check this cubby, and you have to then pinch into B main. So what else would you need? You would need some abilities to help you clear out mid, and then some abilities to just like get some vision or at least 100% force them out of here. First of all, the smoke is a little bit late, right? You can tell, okay, Medusa's like, I'm going to keep them trapped here. I'm going to keep them trapped here. He's throwing the nanoswarm so they don't push out, so they don't get caught off guard. That's fine. The smoke just comes up in mid. Okay, I mean, at the end of the day, you still have control of mid. That's fine. Paranoia is now coming out into B main. The issue that I have with this move here is they are not focused at all about the site, right? They are just like, operator and B main, we gotta take it out. We have the timing. Even though we were a couple seconds late into the smoke on mid, this is what we set up for. The pinch is good. Let's go into B main. Paranoia comes out. But you're not considering someone being here like XCLLs. You're not considering someone being in the cubby. You're not considering someone watching from the steps. There's just so many angles, and you have no information, and yet you still have a recon bolt. You still have 2 flash drives. I mean, the shock darts maybe not as valuable, but you still have those. There's just so much else you could be doing to push this out. And yet, what we see is Mei just waltzes into mid. No support whatsoever. Credit to CLZ. He makes the correct call to just back out and focus on mid because he knows he's getting pinched, and XCL is already there for backup. So Fennel also plays this well. But it is disappointing that they had this decent idea, and they honestly, I mean, you could have taken like 2 more seconds to line up the recon bolt or something into the site, or throw a flash drive at the very least into the door. Something here to support each other, and they just don't. And now they're like, well, now we're stuck here, so we're just gonna keep going through and still not use our abilities. The recon bolt did get used, but that's neither here nor there because it is quite late, because they used the recon bolt actually to clear B main, the corner there, which again, I mean, all your focus is on B main. That corner would have been spotted by the guys coming in from mid. It's just a little disappointing that you had this good idea, you had the right call, but then you started to rush, right? You started to kind of feel the pressure, and you're like, we have to take out the op. And you thought you had a good timing, and then you just didn't think about all the other possibilities. Now, here's another round where we're actually going to see some pressure on to B. This is now hailing back to Medusa. He likes to lurk. He's got some decent aim. He's often opening the map up for his team. But here, maybe a little bit of overconfidence. So early on, you see defensive abilities coming out into B main, some spam here and there. And so, Fennel is telling, doing everything they can to let them know, like, hey, we're still watching B main. Don't come here. We don't want you to deal with that. And they're just creeping up, trying to take control of tree and making sure that they have sight of A. The retake in the works here for Fennel. They have the Cosmic Divide as well, so all things are going as planned. And Crazy Raccoon just says, okay, let's go for the mid control again. Good. I mean, that's fine. I'm peeking out a little bit just to see, just to get some information. Are there any more people, etc.? That's okay too. And I think this is probably a result of that previous round where they just had no more information on main, so they couldn't really rush in for the pinch. In theory, Medusa probably didn't have to peek for the turret, but he peeks for the turret and he takes it out, okay? He now has 50-50 control of B main, right? It is not under anybody's control. It is in contention, and he could just chill out because your team is waltzing through. 0 point didn't catch anyone in market. Team's still waltzing through. You're ready for a peek out. But if you peek out now, you're like just swinging on a timing. Like you're just hoping that you catch them off guard. And he does exactly that, and he gets picked off. The only way I can explain this is Medusa feeling that he has to be the one who opens up the site. And maybe that was true. If that was true, it's not a great place to be, right? If you have to rely on like, well, this guy just has to get frags, that means that you're the underdog, right? That means that you're not supposed to win the round. You're not supposed to win the match. So if that was the case, even if that is objectively true, then it's unfortunate that that's how they feel, because on the map, I mean, overall, they still haven't cleared the alarm bot. They still have someone watching if they push out from mid. The movement's not bad. I mean, you have Hunter's Fury, you've got an Odin, you got From the Shadows. You have ways to make things work. You could still clear the alarm bot. You still have a minute 20 on the clock. There's just a lot more you can work with, but they start to rush. Medusa kind of forces his way in, and they're like, okay, well, it's just the Killjoy, so now everyone can focus onto mid. And Crazy Raccoon's like, well, clear the alarm bot, reset. At least they reset here, except there's an over-under setup. And then they pinch in from market, and they just get absolutely slaughtered. Now, this last part is actually, I think, kind of the ribbon that ties up this entire sequence of rounds, because what we're going to see, we're jumping back into the match against Northeption on Haven, and what we're going to see is Crazy Raccoon actually has a really good idea here. So it's round 4. They had the operator the last round as well. May, some really good shots with it. I think he maybe gets a 4K in that round. But, he's just hamming it up with the operator. But now the operator is in Medusa's hands. So already a bit of a curveball, because the Jet bought an early op, and you're like, okay, well, now the Jet, I mean, they might change positions, but the Jet probably has the op. So they're either watching A main from A sewers, from on top of B, C long, or sometimes an aggressive push out, right? That's the sequence of things you can imagine. But the only aggressive push out is really going to be from garage, right? Or maybe a slow creep up with the op watching for them. You are not expecting the Jet to have the Vandal. Now, also has the Blade Storm, so yeah, maybe you could imagine that, but Northwestern is not really counting on it. And you see some early smokes already and an early fault line coming out from Northwestern. So they are just ready to pounce on there. A delayed Paranoia, which really baits them in. Good anti-flash from May as well. Everything is going dandy. Northwestern did not know what hit him. They did not expect 4 people out of all things to be here. The problem is May gets I would say even the double kill is really good for him, right? Popogacci was late because he was trying to set up his abilities early on to make sure that May gets in with vision and knowledge. So he had to walk through the smoke. So he's late on his backup. But what happened in A short is a bit unfortunate because right now it's just going to be Makiba here. Neth already was up, but Makiba for some reason like dips back into the wall. He's not just holding this angle to try to trade against Y. And then it just turns into 2 1v1s, and they can't win those duels either. And what I want to point out here is, okay, so Crazy Raccoon, May seems to be very good mechanically. Medusa has some really good mechanical moments as well. But the rest of them, while they have pop-off moments, I mean, it's not like this is not the team we're thinking of if we're like, well, who has the best aim in Pacific? I'm not saying they're bad, but there's just a lot of great players now, even in Pacific. So if you're not all 5 always on point, then these plays aren't always going to be the ones you rely on. Now, we're cherry picking rounds. I get it. This could happen. I mean, we didn't see it from their point of view, but maybe Y and Dariali just had really crispy shots as well. That can happen, and I still would say that this was a very good attempt from them. But from what I've seen throughout the matches, it's just not consistent enough. And what happens is they rely on May to go in. They set up May for a lot of these moments. And if they ever overheat, they actually overheat together, which is, I think, good, right? Because you're not just letting May go out to die if he overheats, and May's not like throwing the rounds for them. They're like, okay, we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep push. Just go again, and fight, try to win the duels. That's fine. But again, if that's the style you're going to do, it has to be more than May and Medusa, who are consistently just always trying to outfrag their opponents. And there's a round against Fennel, I can't remember off the top of my head, where it's a 5v2. There's no reason for them to push out from defense, and they just like keep going out for these duels, and they all get, I believe, picked off by Ciuta, and I think he gets an ace there, and he clutches it. So it's just one of those things where it's like you rely heavily on May and potentially Medusa to make these opening kills. Sometimes you have some good trades. At the very least, you're moving together to set up trades, but you have to know when to stop. And we saw some rounds where they can do that. So it's not a lost art to them, but I think they're just not polished enough yet. And when push comes to shove, their default is to overheat. So I think that's really going to catch them, as they come into Pacific. Now, here's another round where Medusa, okay, you have the op. I think he gets the call that everyone's weak. Sure. I think attempting up to this point is okay, right? But, you have money. You have money to buy up again, all right? You're tapping. You're trying to still look for another kill. You're not finding it. That's fine as well. You're tapping here. You're trying to go for the half. This is fine as well. But, like, at this point, like, you should be saving. There's, like, no reason. I mean, I guess you draw the Hunter's Fury. But there's no way you're winning the round, right? And while you did draw the Hunter's Fury, and while you do have some funds to buy up again, I would say, objectively speaking, he probably should have saved. But what that just goes to show for me is Medusa is also not one to ever shy away from a fight. And if you watch their matches, I think you'll find that that is a pattern. He's always going to go for fights. And when he wins, it often leads to a lot more advantages for Crazy Raccoon. And if he doesn't, things seem to fall apart pretty quickly. So we took a look at a handful of rounds, actually quite a bit more than I originally planned, From the old Crazy Raccoon roster, now the core of them, 4 members moving on to DFM. The big question here is Makiba's the only one that did not follow suit because DFM kept Anthem on their main roster. So now Anthem will be joining them, and none of the 5 players on the current DFM roster used to be primary controllers. None of them used to be the main smokes for their team. Some of them have kind of bounced around here and there, and Neth seems to be trying to pick up the controller a bit more if we have the Riot 1 Invitational to go off of. So my guess is Neth is going to play primary controller. Anthem's probably IGLing, and then they'll kind of flex around that. May will still play Duelist. Medusa will still play primary, like Sentinel and Lurker. So, yeah, I mean, I think the roles will work out that way. I don't think it's going to be bad. The other silver lining is, personally, I thought Anthem's calling was getting better and better throughout 2023. So, maybe that'll actually keep them from overheating and things like that. But how well does that chemistry work? Because it's the remaining 4 that used to be on the same team together. It remains to be seen. Again, at the end of the day, the good news is they're not like playing individually. If things go awry, they're not just like all playing individually. Medusa sometimes he forces a little bit too much, I think. But the rest of them, they're like swinging together, they're committing together. So I think the baseline for teamwork and trust is there. If the overall calls can get a bit better and a bit more controlled, right? Because they have some good ideas. Then even if they're not always on top in firepower, I think they still should get a win. But at the start of this video, when I was originally looking up all this data, I was telling myself, DFM's actually going to get their win this year. I changed my tune. They're going to get their win this year. And in my head, it was going to be against Talon Esports, mostly just because Talon is such a big question mark, and I just have no idea what to expect. And if that's the case, I don't really quite have faith that they're going to work things out quickly enough. But now that I'm looking at this from DFM, again, I think it's going to look better than last year. I think the teamwork, they have a stronger start for teamwork. I think they are committed to this, right? They just made that statement that they're committed to trying to improve and really prove themselves in VCT Pacific. So if you're a fan of DFM, then yes, you should have faith that they are going to look better. The question is it going to be good enough to get a win? Let me know down in the comments below, because at this point, 1 week away from kickoff, I could not tell you. But thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, please remember to subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and of course, drop a like in the video, as that helps a ton too. And let me know, is DFM going to get a win? If so, you got to tell me who's that team going to be that gives that first desperate win to DFM. See you next time.